AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Welcome to episode 214 of Sports Management Podcast. Today's guest is Spencer Gore, founder and CEO of Gorely Group and the owner and chairman of Chelmsford City Football Club. He's also the founder and CEO of EMJ, European Medical Journal, and AMJ, American Medical Journal, as well as EMJ Learnings. We spoke about the power of daily visualization, why process equals freedom, how Chelmsford City plans to reach the Premier League by 2038, lessons in leadership, failure, and mindset, and much more. Spencer Gore, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
It's great to talk to you. You are the CEO of Gorely Group. You are the founder and CEO of EMJ and AMJ, European Medical Journal and American Medical Journal, as well as the owner and chairman of Chelmsford City Football Club. So that's quite a lot. So can you tell us how your days look like with all of these responsibilities?
Yeah, it is quite. I've also got a little company out in the Netherlands called EMJ Learning as well. So there's four main businesses that I'm running. My days are very mixed, really. It really does depend on the day of the week. So yes, this weekend we had an FA Cup game up in Birmingham, so I was staying up in Birmingham for the weekend. Today I'm at home, and then I'm going off to the club later on to see the FA Cup draw, who we get in the next round, and then our academy team is in the FA Youth Cup tonight. Tomorrow I'm meeting an owner of another club for breakfast. Then I'm off to meet some sponsors, and then I'm off to watch another team, local team. Then Wednesday, Thursday, I'm in the London office at EMJ, helping with some of the stuff there, and I have my weekly meetings with them. And then Friday, I fly off to America, and I'm out in America for 4 or 5 days. So no day is ever the same for me. It's quite tricky spinning a lot of plates, but I have a very good senior leadership team that helped me do it.
Sounds good. So let's back up to 2012 when you founded EMJ. You spotted a gap in the market in medical publishing. So can you tell us about the decision to start EMJ and what was this gap in the market that you saw?
Yeah, so the gap in the market I saw was actually going back to 2007. So at the start of the financial crisis, I'd worked for 2 different businesses. I'd worked for a publishing company that had just started doing some online stuff. So we just launched ebooks. We still had CD-ROMs on the front cover of our journals in those days, and we just launched ebooks. And I'd also worked for a company that did exhibitions. We were the 3rd biggest organizer of exhibitions in the UK. And I thought there was a gap in the market between so when we did the exhibitions, there was about 90,000 people would register to come to our exhibition. And only about 45,000 people would turn up. And that was because something had come up, they were busy, they couldn't get that time out of work, but they were interested. And so I thought, we're not really taking advantage of this 45,000 people that are interested enough to register but can't make it to our Congress or our exhibition. And so I then got headhunted back to the publishing company, and we published our journals throughout the year, but really when it suited us rather than when it suited the end user. So I thought, why don't we publish our journals around the big events in our industry? Because if it's like the one I've just been in, there'll be half the people that can't attend them. So we can give them an update of what's going on. So why don't we launch highlights of the events? And I took that to my boss, and he said, well, look, that's great. Write a business plan and we'll take it to the board of directors. And I went up to the CEO and then the board of directors, and they didn't want to do it. And it turns out they were winding that company up about a year later, which is why they weren't looking for new ideas. But I left that company within a month of meeting the board of directors and being told they weren't going to do it. I'd left. My wife had just had our first child, our daughter. We'd just moved to a new big house, and I decided to pack in a very well-paid job and take a gamble, and I'm glad I did. And I did that for that was 2008 by this time. I did that for 4 years. I owned 50% of the business. Well, I owned 100% of the business. I got a partner in, sold him 50%. Then we got some investors in. So by the time I left there, I owned 40%, which I still own 40%. But I realized the partner I'd got in, although I'd worked with him for quite some time, we just weren't aligned in what we wanted out of life. And there's no sort of right or wrong values, but my values weren't aligned with his. And eventually I just got to the decision that I needed to set up and be in charge of my own destiny completely, which is when I set up EMJ in 2012.
That's quite a leap, as you said, with a new house and a first child, and then leaving a secure job for an entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, it was a hell of a leap, really, in hindsight, looking back. But at the time, I just figured, if I don't do it, I'll always look back and think, what if? And the downside to me was that if it doesn't work, I'm a good salesperson. I'll go and get a job selling something else. But if it does work, it will be phenomenal. And so that was the thought process I used, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, I'm sure. And EMJ grew from a journal and Congress related idea into a digital health communication platform, now over 1.2 million healthcare professionals. So what was the hardest in scaling this business?
Well, originally it was just trying to do everything myself. It was such a big opportunity, and it was me. And then I got a couple of interns in, and then I brought in a business partner, and I brought in a sales guy who had worked with me in a previous place, and offered him the opportunity to buy 20% if he hit certain targets over the next 2 years, which he did. And so he still owns 20% now. It was really making sure that we focused on the here and now, because there were such big opportunities. We knew we could grow it into £1 billion business. We haven't got there yet, but we're still on that journey. But we could see that really early on, and so it was making sure we didn't get too carried away, and we focused on the here and now. Because there's a saying: turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is king. And it's very easy to spend the cash that you've booked in, but haven't actually had the cash in the bank account, or some big company pays you after 90 days rather than the 14-day payment terms, and it messes up a lot. So it was key, really, just keeping the focus on what we were doing, not getting too carried away, because I do like my new shiny toys. And then it's some of the, I'd call it the boring stuff, but it's really exciting, to be honest, because it gives you the freedom, which is processes. No one likes talking about processes, or not many people like talking about processes. But actually, as soon as you start processing stuff, you shouldn't then have to get involved in that sort of decision ever again. So it frees your time up to go and do the things you do like doing, and you can get excited by. So I think the key thing for me was getting processes right, getting the structure right, and recruiting on the values. So we made sure everyone was aligned with what we were trying to achieve, and that they were doing it in the way that we thought was best by following the process.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that, because if you say that if you set a process and then you can leave it, then you rely on that team. So then it's really crucial that you have done the correct recruitment to have the team that you can rely on for this process.
100%. We had a board meeting a couple of months ago, and the team were listing me all the challenges that were coming up at the time. And I just turned around and said, look, every single one of these is a process challenge. It's a process break. Someone hasn't followed the process. That's why it's so important. If everyone follows process, you will get it right all the time. And then the only time you'll get it wrong is when the process needs to be changed and updated, and then you change and update it following the process for changing and updating the process. It is quite dull and boring, but it's how McDonald's have become one of the biggest businesses in the world.
True.
You go into McDonald's, you know what a Big Mac looks like anywhere in the world. It's the same process, every single franchise. They're all the same.
Yeah. And then now fairly recently scaled also into America with AMJ.
Yeah.
What did that decision come from? Was it the same thing that you saw, that was huge opportunities there?
Yeah, I think that was, there was two key factors. One was the opportunity there, and we knew it was. It's an even bigger market than the European market. So that was probably the key driver, or the key opportunity. And then for me, it's, we have our values. The unofficial sort of fourth value after the EMG, entire buy-in, make sure you look after your own shit and then go the extra mile, is having fun. And I'd always wanted to have an office out in New York. And it had always been part of my, I visualize everything I'm doing. It was always been, I'm going to have an office in New York, blah, 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 blah. We got a little WeWork office out there when we started doing things. And I was doing a lot of work with a company down in Miami. And I took some of the team there and some of the team that were going to be going over to America to launch for us in New York. And they said, why don't we do it in Miami? It's a lot nicer weather. Yeah, they were half joking, but we started looking into it, and there was a lot of good reasons why we should do it in Miami versus New York, and so we ended up setting up in Miami. So, fundamentally, we knew there was an opportunity; otherwise, we wouldn't have done it. But it was really in America because I'd always had a dream of owning a business in America.
Is that something that drives you? You mentioned before that you like your shiny toys and you wanted to have an office in New York. So you have some material goals as well when you're visualizing?
Yeah, I think for me, everything's about visualization. It's if I've got goals, I have to go and see them and what they look like and what it will feel like. I do a lot of I call it feed my future. I stole that off Grant Cardone, American I follow. But it's affirmations. It's writing down what I want to have, but in the present tense. So I own a business in America. I was writing that down for 10 years before I did it. I own a football club. I was writing that down for 10 years before I did it. So it's all of that. Work out what you want to achieve and then reverse engineer it. Work backwards from what you want to achieve so you're on the right pathway. Because otherwise you're just drifting all over the place. So yeah, I have to have a goal that I'm working towards. I have to be able to visualize that goal, and then I set a plan for working backwards to achieve that.
So what have been some other goals? You said shiny toys. Is it a specific car? Is it, some things like that, material things as well?
Yeah, I've done it with cars. Funny enough, been out in Miami in 2018, I think it was. I went to a conference out there, and it just so happened to be on Super Bowl Sunday. I was out there, and I'm not an American football fan, but it was a big event out there. Obviously, we were down on the beach in Miami, and all the cars are driving up and down, and everyone's out partying. And I saw a Rolls-Royce Wraith, and I didn't even know what it was. I was like, wow, that's a hell of a car. I took a picture. I put it on my laptop as my screensaver. And a couple of years later, I bought myself a Rolls-Royce Wraith because that's what I'd set myself a target to work towards. So yeah, it can be something like that. It can be, I want to run an ultramarathon. I had that on there. I had it on there for a long time that I have completed an ultramarathon. And then 5-6 years ago, I completed an ultramarathon. So it can be something materialistic. It can be something to do with my fitness. It can be something to do with the business. It can be to do with family. And I do that every day. So I write it down every single day of what I want to achieve, but in the present tense.
I love that. I mean, obviously, some part of your business is, we said, healthcare related and healthcare communication, and also owning the football clubs. Are there any synergy similarities between these two sectors learnings that you can draw that is beneficial for one to the other?
Yeah, 100%. I think the key overriding one is when we're recruiting, I said we recruit by the value. So I think any skills that you need for the jobs we're doing, you've either got it when you come and work for us, or you've got to have the ability to learn those skills. But we can train you those skills or send you on a course to learn those skills. Your values will never change. Your values are right for you. My values are right for me. That's great. If they're not aligned, it definitely won't work. If they are aligned, it possibly will work. Still not definitely, but much more likely to work. And so we have a quadrant of, have you got the values and you don't have the values? Have you got the skills and you don't have the skills? What we're looking to do is to get everyone into the box where you've got the values and you've got the skills. And then our job is, so I go back to our values of entire buy-in. You've got to be entirely bought into what we're trying to achieve. But on the flip side, I'm going to be entirely bought into what you want to achieve. And so therefore, I'll help you achieve those goals. And once we get you completely aligned on that, you go into the top corner of the box. And that's what we call our gold medal winners. And that's people that are fully aligned with us. They're getting the results. And then we'll do everything we can to keep them, whether that's pay rises, promotions, empowerments, whatever it might be, sponsoring their racing team because they've set up a racing team. You name it, we'll do it if we think it's right for you. So it's the common thread is we want people that want to be the best version of themselves, whether that's in healthcare, whether that's in sport. And it's, I was talking to our football first team manager on Saturday after the game. And we're just both so driven to be as professional as we can be. And we get so frustrated when we see people that are just along for the ride, so to speak. And it's, at the football club, we've gone from part-time training 2 nights a week to full-time training 4 days a week and playing on a Saturday. And it's great that people are excited by that and they're enjoying it and whatever. But you've got a responsibility that comes with that you've got to act like a professional now. And not everyone is acting in that way. And so it's down to us to make them aware of it and to hold them accountable and say, look, it's great that you're enjoying yourselves, but the results come first. You've got to get the results before you start going the extra mile and doing all those other things.
Yeah, I love that. So let's jump to Chelmsford City. You recently acquired a majority share there. So what was the decision into, you had written it down, I want to own a football club. So, from that dream, visualizing it, writing it down to actually going through with it, how's that process been like?
Yeah, so I grew up locally, so it's my local team. But talking about visualizing things, in 2012, when I set up EMJ, I started working with a business coach. And the very first session I had with him, he asked me the question, what would you do if you won the lottery and it was topped up every night? So you've spent money on traveling and given money to your family and charity, et cetera, and it's topped up in the morning. What gets you out of bed? And I said, well, I'm too old to be a professional footballer. We'll forget I wasn't good enough. Therefore, I'm not going to be a professional manager probably. So therefore, I'd love to own a football club. And he said, well, Liverpool, and because that's the team I follow. And I said, no, they're already at the top. I want to take a team to the top. So it's got to be Chelmsford City for me. And from that day, we built a plan to create EMJ to be the vehicle to allow me to do that. So that was a driver for me to make EMJ very successful so I could then go and buy the football club and make that successful. So I got involved at the club. I helped out down there. I was on the board a couple of times. I helped with some sponsorship down there. I was the biggest sponsor of the club 4 or 5 years ago. I tried to buy the club. They didn't. Well, they said they wanted to sell, but then it didn't happen. It was going backwards and forwards. And then eventually I thought it wasn't going to happen. And that's why I set up AMJ and EMJ Learning last year. And then the opportunity to buy the club became available. And so I went in and I bought 60% of the club off the guys that were leaving. And the rest, they say, is history. Yeah, that was just over a year ago now. And it's been great fun.
Nice that it's something from your hometown, close to heart, and something that you visualized.
Yeah, definitely. And that was really important to me for 2 reasons. One, I'm an all or nothing person. So I knew if I did this, I'd be really involved in it because I didn't want to just buy a club as a hobby or an investment or whatever you buy clubs. I wanted to buy it to be hands-on to try and improve it. I'd visualized, talking of visualization, I visualized from that day and back in 2012, standing at Wembley holding up a trophy. And that's what drives me on. I'd still, whether it's the FA Cup in an ideal world or the FA Trophy for us that we enter this year, whatever it is, I want to be at Wembley holding up the trophy that I've won for Chelmsford City. That's the driver for me. That's the visualization. But I also want to help put Chelmsford on the map. I was talking to someone this morning. For me, it's vitally important that we try and help raise the profile of Chelmsford as a city because it's a great place and it's probably still famous for being the birthplace of radio 100 odd years ago. And it hasn't really done much since then to get people talking about it. And so I want people to talk about Chelmsford and say, oh, yeah, it's famous now for having a really good community-led football team that helps the community. It's not just about trying to win trophies. It's about making sure we do it in the right way with the walking football, the disability football, the football in the community, the foundation, the women's team, the youth team, all of it together, pulling in the same direction to put Chelmsford on the map.
I love that. So you mentioned a long-term goal there is to stand at Wembley and holding the cup. If we dissect that goal a little bit and see, maybe what's for this year, 3, 5, 10 years, how do you see that plan for Chelmsford?
Yeah, so like everything, I reverse engineer stuff. So, I'm very ambitious and I just think if you're going to do something, why would you settle for second best? So for me, it was always right, how do we get Chelmsford into the Premier League? They're in the 6th division, effectively, of football in National League South. So it's 5 promotions. What's stopping us doing that? Is it possible? So we looked at the size of Chelmsford, the population, to make sure there's enough footfall, and actually it's a championship level population city. So we know the footfall's there. It's quite an affluent area compared to a lot of places that are in the Premier League. So we thought that was that was doable. We looked at teams that have been in the National League and got to the Premier League, like Luton in the last few years. So we think it's doable. So does every other club owner. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it. So that doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it's the target that we're working towards. So we looked at timelines, and it's impossible to know how long something like this takes, but it's our centenary year in 2038. So we've set a goal of being in the Premier League by 2038. So that's the big, hairy, audacious goal, as we like to call it, the BHAG. Breaking that down and reverse engineering it, in 5 years, we want to be in the Football League. So the club's never been in the Football League. So we've got a 5-year goal to get to the Football League. And then going backwards again, in 2 years, within 2 years, we want to be in the National League. So ideally it's this year, but there's been a hell of a lot of change around the club this year. We spent most of last year getting the club into to ground zero, as we called it. We've got rid of all of the stuff that wasn't working, or a lot of the stuff that wasn't working. We've cleared a lot of the debt. We went full time. So this year's really about settling in and trying to push in and make sure we finish in the playoffs. And that's just a lottery then, really. So if we go up, great. But if we don't, it's not the end of the world. We'll look to do it the next year.
Any other goals that isn't on the pitch? So maybe community or commercial success, fan engagement, any other goals surrounding the clubs?
Yeah, we've got 3 critical numbers, as we call them, that we track throughout the season that everything else feeds into. The 3 numbers are our revenue targets. So we have a target to achieve the revenue, because we need to make sure that the club is doing it in the right way and it's affordable. We've got, call it fan engagement, but it's getting the average attendance to a certain level throughout the year. We've set targets throughout the year and where we want to finish the season as an average attendance. And then we've got a points target. So we've set a goal, a minimum goal and a stretch goal for the year that we want to achieve. But I think, for me, it's very much about, how do we do this in the right way? We've cleared the debt. We're in the best position financially the club's been in for 20 years, according to the council. We've increased our sponsorship massively over the last 12 months. We've bought the club shop in-house. So now all of the merchandise money is going to us. So we've increased that. We've made more money from merchandise this season, and we're only at the end of September, than we made in the whole of last season. We sold twice as many season tickets as we sold the year before last. Our attendance, if you look at the average attendances so far this season in our league, the second place biggest growth, I think, is Horsham, who got promoted, and they're up 25% on the previous year. We're up 66%. We've had massive increase in our attendance. We had our biggest opening day crowd of the season in 52 years. So we're looking to do this in a sustainable way. We're increasing our budgets because we've gone full time, which has meant we've signed a lot of players. So people are talking about the sort of money we're spending, but actually we're probably the 7th in the top 7 biggest spenders in the league, which is in line with finishing in the top 7 for the playoffs. So we're doing it in a sensible way. We're not listening to what anyone else is saying. We're focusing on how we do it. We've put no debt into the club. We've cleared the debt that was there. And we're doing it by trying to market the club, to get the community involved so that they come and watch us. It might not be the men's first team that they come and watch. The women's first team play at home, all their home games on a Sunday now. We've got the FA Youth Cup tonight at the ground. So it's trying to get everyone involved and all working together as part of the club.
That's great. And a lot to look forward to there, a lot of goals.
Yeah.
If we dig into your background a little bit, how's your background? How did you get into this line of work, and how's your journey been like?
I fell into this line of work really to start with. So my background is I guess a little bit like a lot of entrepreneurs, because we can't fit into the normal structure in the world. But I found out in the last 5 or 6 years, I guess it was, that I was dyslexic, which I didn't know when I was a kid, but it probably explains a lot. That, at school, I never really could concentrate or focus or learn in the way that everyone else learned. I was quite often in trouble, nothing serious, but I was messing around and just didn't really get on with school because I couldn't understand the way that everyone else learned. And so I left after a year of A-levels, went and worked in a pub for 6 months and then in an insurance broker's for 6 months. I was earning £4,500 a year at the insurance brokers. I don't know how I managed to survive on that back in the day, but then decided I think I probably should get an education. It probably would help me. So I went back to college. This is where the shiny toys come in as well. I like to chop and change quite a lot. Went to college, did my A-levels, did quite well in my first year, not so well in my second year when I started getting distracted. Got into University College London, did well in my first year, then became football club captain at the university, managing the 7 teams that we had there, and just loved doing that. Didn't enjoy the course. So I failed my second year and got more and more involved in sport at the university. I was the cricket club captain. I just enjoyed that side of it more than I did studying. And so I left after 4 years without a degree. Didn't know what I was going to do. My old boss asked if I was looking for work, and I was. I'd worked at the student union, so my old boss at the student union, I'd managed to fall into some television work for a couple of years, and then moved into a sales job. I wanted to get a proper job, and the sales job was the most proper job I ever got. And that was where I started doing on the publications and the healthcare side of it. And it sort of one thing led to the other from there.
Interesting. And I like to ask that question because it really highlights that no one's journey is the same, and that whatever your history has been like, you can do what you want to do if you have those ambitions, and you don't have to have a certain degree to work with sports or owning a club or something like that.
100%. And going back to the visualization, I like to look at people that have achieved things as well, and it makes you realize that fundamentally, we're all pretty much the same. Most of us have got 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, 2 ears, 2 eyes. We're fundamentally the same. We just sometimes get different opportunities, but those opportunities you can quite often go and find yourself, whether you've come from a really privileged background or a less privileged background. There's still opportunities for people, and it's whether you take those opportunities or not. So my wife and kids will tell you that I'm always telling them off for using the word luck. I don't believe in luck. I think you make your own luck, and I call that fortune. I'm very fortunate that I've been given some opportunities and I had some opportunities, but you've got to take those opportunities, and some people will take them and some people won't. But the ones that do are the ones that you hear about.
Yeah, for sure. And something else, gold is something that you hear a lot around your things. You have your mission, gold medal winners. You have the Gold with Gore podcast. So is this to be the best, to reach gold? That's what it means, right?
100%. Yeah, it's always about being the best version of yourself you can be. So it doesn't mean you've got to be the fastest 100-meter runner, but run as fast as you could possibly run 100 meters, and then you've won your own gold. So for me, it's all about that. And we, as you say, we're always looking to help people become gold medal winners. There was a spell of a good few years back where me and my business partner felt we were perhaps putting too much emphasis on the success side of things and not enjoying it as much as we could. And that's why it's really important to enjoy the journey as well as the destination. And so we started talking about gold medal moments. Let's set some goals in life where we're doing stuff that we really enjoy, that we can say, imagine you're Usain Bolt and you've just won gold and you're at the Olympics. Well, what's the equivalent for you or me? What's your gold medal moment? And it might be, for me, going backstage at Coldplay and watching Coldplay. It might be seeing Chelmsford win the FA Cup or winning a round of the FA Cup, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter, but make sure you put some things in where you can just take a moment and reflect and go, yeah, that was pretty cool. That was my gold medal moment. And so it's building in as many of those as you can, as well as the actual gold medals.
I don't think everyone at the Coldplay concert thought that was a gold medal moment, but most of them.
Yeah.
Speaking of gold, I heard you in another interview talking about Duplantis, obviously a Swedish athlete that has broken the record several times. And you talked about incremental gains. Take these small steps and the small gains and learning every day. Is that something you adapt as well?
Yeah, massively. Funny enough, when I started working with the business coach that I mentioned earlier, the first time I met him, we got talking, and he recommended a book to me. He recommended 2 books to me. Both were called Winning. One was by Jack Welch, the former CEO at GE, and one was by Sir Clive Woodward, the England rugby coach that won the World Cup. And I read the Sir Clive Woodward one first, and I'm not a rugby fan, but I loved that book, and I loved pretty much everything he did in that book. And I adopted so many of those things at EMJ when we were first looking at EMJ. And he talked about critical non-essentials. And it's basically that what Sir Dave Brailsford made famous with his marginal gains. It's exactly that concept. It's if you've got a task you want to do, and I say to you, go and improve that by 100%, it sounds really hard to do. But if I say that same task, go and get your football team promoted this year. If you then break that down into 100 pieces and improve each one of those pieces by 1%, you get the 100% improvement. So it doesn't have to be a big, groundbreaking, reinventing or coming up with something completely new to change things. It can be that, and they're not bad, but it's really just taking what you've got and tweaking and improving a little bit each day. And so at the football club, myself and Angelo talk about every day we're at the club is the worst this club's ever going to be. Because every day we're trying to improve it a little bit, and it'll get better and better and better. And most people from the outside won't see the differences until the end result comes in. But each day we can see what we're doing. We know what we're doing. We have that plan. I spoke to a guy called Paul Barber, who's the CEO at Brighton Football Club, Brighton and Hove Albion. And he used the phrase, you've got to ignore the noise and focus on the signal. And what that means is we know what we're trying to do. We know these little incremental gains that we're making every single day. Other people can't see it, and they'll moan about the result or moan about this. But you've got to just focus on what we're doing and knowing we're doing it in the right way. And on Saturday at the game, a couple of fans came up to me and said, you must be a bit disappointed with how things are going after all the hype. And I said, not really. We're 3 points off third place. And we're 2 points behind where I'd set the target for the season. Pro rata. If you look at games, I'd set a target of I wanted us to be on 16 points. We're on 14 points. So yeah, okay, we're not quite where we wanted to be in terms of points on the pitch, but we're not far off at all. And if you look at the attendance, we'd set a target of, at this stage in the season, having an attendance of an average of 1,000, because that was up from 800 last year. Well, our average at the moment is nearly 1,400. So we're way exceeding that. Revenue, which was the other target, we're way exceeding that. So 2 of our 3 critical numbers, we're absolutely smashing, and 1 we're a little bit behind. So yeah, I'll take that for this stage in the season.
I love that mindset. And it's like an overnight success takes 10 years. It's the classic saying, right? That's what you say, that all these small things that you do will not be shown to the masses until you make it, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, I won an award. I say I won an award. I got an award a few years back as one of the top 50 most ambitious people on the LDC list that went into the Times. And they said, one of the questions they asked me, what do you think has made you so ambitious now then? I said, I've always been this ambitious. The difference is now I'm getting some audits for the success I've achieved. But as you said, I've been doing that for probably 18 years, since 2000, whatever that is, 2007, 2008. I've been equally as ambitious since day one, possibly even more ambitious then. It's just that people didn't know about it because I didn't have some of the results that I've got now. So it's every day I've just been working away towards that plan, little improvement. At some point, your head goes above the parapet and people start talking about you and hearing about you. And so they give you these awards and stuff. Doesn't mean I'm more ambitious than I was 18 years ago.
Exactly. With that said, has there been any bumps on the road in your career? And if so, how did you overcome them?
I've had more bumps than you can imagine. But my favorite quote is from Nelson Mandela. I never lose, I either win or learn. And there's been so many things that I've learned from over the years. People call them challenges. I sometimes call them challenges, but really we tend to call them opportunities. So it's an opportunity to improve because you didn't get it right the first time. And I think without those, you just don't. The more you make, the more you improve. So they're really important to have. I think the key thing is having the long-term goal and knowing that you're going to make mistakes. As long as you make them for the right reasons and you correct them as quick as you can, it's not a problem. It's when you keep making the same mistake over and over, that's when you've got a problem, because you're not learning from it. So it's, as Sir Clive Woodward says, that's when you need sponges, that not rocks. So a sponge wants to soak up knowledge and learn, and a rock thinks they know everything. So it's surrounding yourself by sponges that aren't afraid to make mistakes. And every time you make that mistake, look at it and say, well, what can we do differently next time that will be better? And then you just keep making those incremental gains, because you've made a mistake, you've tried it, it didn't work, you improve next time. So I see failing as a great thing. I look at it that for every 10 things I try, 8, possibly 9 of them won't work, but the one that does work will work really well. So the quicker I make those 8 or 9 things and make those mistakes, the quicker I'll get to the one that does work. And that's how I've always looked at it. So I don't have a problem with making mistakes or failing at all.
Yeah, I mean, there are several, like, what can you say, examples or analogies around this, that for every no, that's one step closer to a yes if you're a salesperson, for example. So I like that mindset.
100%. That's where it came from for me, really, is my first sales job. My old boss used to say to that, when I got a no on the call, he'd just say, you're one call closer. And actually, during COVID, we adopted that. So we'd always had everyone in the office, all day, every day, unless there was a doctor's appointment or something. And then we went to the whole company being based at home. And we had quite a young team, and a lot of them had never worked from home before. They'd never had that sort of lack of engagement from others. And so someone suggested, after a few days, I started doing a daily video. So I would film a little video on my phone and just give them an update or a little motivational something or other. It didn't really matter. It was just to touch base with them. But I finished every one of those with one day closer, because we didn't know when COVID was going to finish. So we couldn't say, look, it'll be over soon. It'll be over in 10 days or 11 days. But it was one day closer to finishing, because we knew it was going to finish. And it's that we know we're going to get it right with the football club. We just don't know when it will get right.
I love that. Is there something I haven't asked you yet that you want to mention?
No, I think I mean, I'm just keen to know what your big hag is. What's your big, hairy, audacious goal in sport? You're doing the podcast. I have my podcast, Goal with Gore, and I do it from quite a selfish perspective, that I just want to get really cool people on that they've got a skill or knowledge that I want to learn, so I can just chat to them for an hour and learn their skills and knowledge. So that's why I do my podcast. Why are you doing yours, and what's the end goal in mind for you?
That's it's interesting. I have a similar goal, as you said, and it's crazy when you think about it, because if you call up some CEO, for example, and you say, "Can I just talk to you for half an hour?" Most people will say, like, "No, I don't have time for that." But if you frame it under this podcast, you cover it under this podcast,
exactly that.
They have a great excuse. So definitely, I mean, I hit, actually yesterday was 5-year anniversary of this podcast. Have over 200 people on. So definitely that learning is a big part. Networking is a big part. I've always said that, like, making money is not my end goal, but would be a plus, because I feel like then you can scale it. You can outsource some editing and research and stuff like that. Since now it's a one-man show, that would be the next thing.
Yeah. I think it's interesting what you said there about the calls. I always say exactly the same thing. If I pick up the phone to sir, so-and-so and so-and-so, what's in it for them? And I use that in life in as much as I can, is how do we make this a win-win? So I want an hour of your time so I can learn from you and pick your brains. But you don't necessarily want to give me an hour of your time just to talk to me. That's not a win for you. But if I can take your learnings and give you the opportunity to talk about your football club or your healthcare business and put that in front of a bigger audience, that's a win for me then. So doing something like this is a win-win. You get to ask me the questions you want to have the answers to, and I get to share the story of the ambition of Chelmsford City and EMJ and AMJ. So that's how I look at these things: is how do we make it a win-win? Because that's the best way in life, I think, is make it a win-win for everyone.
100%, completely agree. I'd like to end on a networking question. So who from your network do you think would be a good guest on this podcast?
There's quite a few I know. You've got people like Robbie Cowling that I'm having breakfast tomorrow with, who owns Colchester United. And talking of the win-wins, he's looking to sell the club. They're a League Two club. He's looking to sell the club at the moment. So him raising awareness of that may be a win for him, and then you get to talk to an owner of a club that's in the Football League.
That sounds great. Spencer, thank you so much for taking the time to be on Sports Management Podcast.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the follow or subscribe button on your podcast app so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportmpodcast@gmail.com, connect with me on LinkedIn, or follow the podcast on Instagram, X, and Facebook @SportsMPodcast.
AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.